Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day 523, 523, August the 18th, 2018, Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in to the early weekend edition. Well, I apologize for the Friday video being a fail. Basically, this doesn't happen hardly ever, but it does occasionally happen. This maybe happened 3 or 4 times over the past year and a half or so that I've been doing these videos. See, what happens is when I go to bed at night, that's when I upload my video, because it takes a couple hours to upload my video. So I go to bed and I upload the video, and I get up in the morning to go to work, and when I get up my video will be done, and all I have to do is press the publish button and it goes live, usually somewhere between 7:30 to 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I go off to work and you guys watch my video. But you know, every now and then, it's pretty rare, but it does happen sometimes, the video will fail. I'll get up and I'll see that the video has not uploaded. It'll either be like it was this morning or yesterday morning. It was just hung up. 30% upload, hung up, stopped. So what happens is that anytime that you're uploading a YouTube video, if you lose connection even for a second, it stops your download. And even when your connection comes back, it doesn't start back loading the video again. It's done. You have to start completely over and completely re-upload the file. Okay, so that's what happened. So anyway, that's why the video failed. I obviously had lost internet connection. We had some pretty bad storms in here last night, and I don't know if it was weather related or, you know, just a glitch or whatever. But anyway, so I lost internet connection for some period of time, and therefore it was a video fail, and that's what happened. So my apologies. Unfortunately, it happened, but it's just part of, you know, the way things go sometimes. But alrighty. You know, whenever I have a video upload fail, what I recommend is that if you really want to watch a TowerGate video, I mean, I got 500 of them, over 500 of them. My guess is all of you haven't seen every episode. Just go to my YouTube channel and scroll down through all my videos and find one that's got a title you like a lot or something, and watch an older video. Do something like that. If you want to watch one of my videos, that is. But anyway, that's what happened. So, enough of that. Hopefully today's video you're watching it and it didn't fail. Okay, so let's get to the news. Well, it appears that Judge Ellis, who is the judge, T.J. Ellis, over the Manafort trial, has denied the release of the names of the jurors to protect them from coming into harm's way. Judge Ellis has stated that he has received death threats, but of course he has U.S. Marshal protection. Now, this is in response to a court filing by CNN, AP, BuzzFeed, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post, and Politico to have the names of the jurors be made public. So T.S. Ellis, Judge Ellis, feels at this point, because of a lot of things going on around this case, death threats and various other things in this heated environment, that it could be putting the jurors at risk. There could be putting their safety at risk. And, of course, he understands that as soon as the names of these jurors come out, the media will be camped out on their lawns. They'll be following these people everywhere they go. They will be harassing them and various other things, draw crowds to them, and possibly create a scene, possibly a violent scene, could be a threat to these jurors. So, in this particular case, Judge Ellis has denied the request by these media organizations in this court filing to have the names released. He's going to keep their names secret, and I think that that's a very good idea. Now, in this particular case, as we got to close of business on Friday, the jury had not reached a verdict. And they've been asking some very interesting questions, too, about clarification on what is reasonable suspicion or probable cause, or the explanation for what is, you know, what do these things mean? Of course, there is no legal definition. It's up to every juror. It's different for every juror. The idea is, if you are on the jury, do you have a certain level of doubt about the prosecution's case? And if you have any reasonable doubt in your mind, based on the evidence you've seen, then you are obligated to vote not guilty. You need to be overwhelmingly convinced that the case made by the prosecution is sound. If you do not feel that way, you are compelled to vote not guilty. Now, I'm not a professional, legal analyst or anything, but these types of questions, and based on this 18-count indictment and everything that went on with it, would suggest to me that this probably works in Manafort's favor. Manafort's favor, in my opinion. Doesn't mean I think he'll get off on all counts. He could be found guilty on some counts and not guilty on others. But in every single one of these counts, that's what the jury has to look at. On this count, do you have any doubt in your mind that Mr. Manafort is guilty? If you have doubt in your mind on this count, then you have to vote not guilty. And you have to go around. Now, my guess is, in this case, just like all cases, the defense attorneys will generally, as will the prosecutors, they will generally focus on certain jurors and target certain jurors. I know, because I was one of them jurors once. I know I was being targeted by the prosecutor because she kept looking at me. She kept wanting to make eye contact with me. And that can mean various things. You don't know what's going on in the mind of the prosecutor or the defense attorney, but they will look at certain jurors when they're making their arguments and try to make eye contact sometimes, and they will target certain jurors as ones that they think they can swing or persuade, or certain jurors who they see doubt in their minds. They'll be watching the jury, and they can read faces, and they can say, man, this person, the prosecutor can say, wow, I don't believe this person's buying my argument. Maybe I need to make eye contact with this juror. I need to make eye contact and speak directly to this juror in a very subtle way, but these prosecutors know what they're doing. And so, they do play to the juries. The defense attorneys do the same thing. They'll look at someone in the jury and say, hey, that person over there, that's the look of a face that has some doubts. I'm going to go to work on that juror. I'm going to make some eye contact with them and continue to build that doubt in their mind, because you only need one, right? So we don't know exactly how this is all going to play out. I'm not an expert in this particular field, but just my gut reaction to it is that the longer this goes on, the longer that the jury is out, I think it generally favors the defense. And when they start asking these types of questions about what is the legal definition of reasonable doubt or whatever, I think that plays into the defense's hands. So I'm not suggesting that Manafort's going to beat all 18 charges, but certainly I think it tells us, well, we know already just from the questions they're asking and from the fact that they've reached the end of Friday deliberations and that the jury did not make a decision, that automatically tells you that the jury was not overwhelmingly persuaded by the prosecution. If they were, they would have come back with a quick verdict, guilty. But they have not come back with a quick verdict of guilty. They are asking questions, and now they're deliberating, and it will move into tomorrow or Sunday, possibly next week, until eventually you're either going to get a not guilty, a hung jury, whatever. So I think that if you're Manafort's attorneys, you have to feel pretty good about the developments so far. And I think it probably works well. I think it works well in Manafort's case. I could be wrong, but that's just my personal opinion. And of course, as I said in the video 2 days ago, I think if Manafort wins this case, the Mueller investigation is essentially over. It's done. At least ways this part of it's done. But the other part of it, where you have Michael Flynn, after pleading guilty, then decides he wants a discovery process, and there's talk that his attorneys have looked through all the information. They may decide to withdraw his guilty plea. We now have Papadopoulos going through the same exact thing. He also pled guilty to lying to the FBI, but now he wants a discovery process. His wife is now suggesting that he should withdraw his guilty plea. So there's a lot of backfiring and a lot of boomeranging that can go on with Mueller, even if his investigation is finished. Manafort beats the rap. Mueller puts out his report. He thinks it's all going to go away. It's not going to go away. The reverberations and the repercussions of the way that he went about things, and the fact that they may have held back exculpatory evidence, the fact that some of these people who pled guilty now realize that something they didn't know before because of information that's come out, that they were part of being set up or used. these things could come back, and I believe will come back to haunt them. There's many chapters to this story left yet to be written. Christopher Steele, little Chrissy Steele, told Bruce Orr in a May 10th, 2017, very important day, May 10th, 2017, in a phone call, Chrissy Steele told Bruce that he was very concerned about Comey's firing. He was very concerned about Comey's firing. He didn't say he was very angry about Comey's firing. He didn't say he was very upset about Comey's firing. He said he was very concerned. Why would Chrissy Steele be concerned about Comey's firing? Is it because he's concerned that the plot that he was deeply involved in might be uncovered? It sure looks that way. Do you remember last week when Sarah Carter, someone leaked to her a couple of texts, I don't know if they were texts, phone calls, or emails, but leaked some communication where Christopher Steele was asking Bruce Orr if he thought that the firewalls would hold up. More evidence. That's all it is. It's just more overwhelming evidence of the plot. And more overwhelming evidence that the plotters were awfully nervous, to say in the least, when they realized that their plot may be exposed. And the reason that he's focused on the Comey thing is because, if you remember, it was in the Comey hearings where Comey was forced to admit that they had a counterintelligence operation against members of the Trump team and even Trump himself. And it was this revelation is what made everybody so nervous. Because once you come out and say that, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to ask the next question. Oh, you had a counterintelligence operation going on against the candidate for president, and then after he won the presidency, you continued a counterintelligence operation against the president and members of his former campaign team, now currently part of his staff, including Michael Flynn. The question is why? What was the evidence? That's exactly the questions that were followed. They were the questions that were asked. They're the questions now being pursued. And the answers are not there. Because there was no evidence. There was no reasonable suspicion. There was no probable cause. All the evidence that they did have for the phony investigation was manufactured by them, put into play by the rotten Reverend Clinton, expedited by Mr. Potato Head John Brennan, and overseen by Barack Hussein Obama. That's the truth. Commie darling, Ocasio Marty Feldman Eyes Cortez, hosted a local town hall meeting, but she banned the media from covering it. Shouldn't surprise anybody, because that's a hallmark of a communist authoritarian. So the truth is that Cortez says a lot of dumb things. And the left-wing corporate media has been critical of her. And because she is not supported by the Democratic establishment, that would be Obama and Clinton, they've basically been going after her a little bit, exposing her a little bit, having a little bit of fun with her. So the honeymoon for Ocasio Marty Feldman Eyes Cortez, the commie darling, is over. It's over. And I'm not even sure she wins that race. I'm not so sure she wins that race. And I'm not so sure this old-time Democrat that she beat doesn't pull some sort of a stunt and try to run on one of the God knows how many different things. In New York, they have about, what, 7, 8 different, ideologies you can run in. You can be a conservative, a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal. I mean, they have a bunch of things that you can run under. This guy could simply run under a different, campaign, under a different party affiliation, and probably beat her in the general. Maybe a Republican will beat her. She's dumber than dirt. And she's been exposed. I mean, let's face it, she's a gaffe. She makes a lot of gaffes. And every time she gets into an interview, she just proves that she's quite ignorant on the issues, on policy. And she's an easy target. And the left-wing corporate media is not really down with her. Remember, the corporate left-wing media is in bed with the corporate Democratic Party, not the, Bernie bros and the commies. Now, they probably agree with her philosophically, but their bread isn't buttered by those people. Their bread is buttered by the corporate Democratic Party, to which they belong, support, and associate with, and their jobs depend on. That's the truth. Mark Warner is going to introduce an amendment to block Trump from arbitrary revoking of security clearances. Great. That's a fantastic idea. Let's go ahead and have that open debate on that bill on the Senate floor. Because Rand Paul will shred Mr. Potato Head and Mr. Warner. And remember, Mark Warner was one of the coup plotters. Arbitrarily. He didn't arbitrarily revoke Mr. Potato Head's clearance. How about a little review of history, Mark? Didn't Mr. Potato Head spy on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and then when asked about it under oath, he said, oh, we didn't do that, and we found out later he did? He lied under oath about spying on the Senate Intelligence Committee and got caught. Mr. Potato Head said that he never heard about the dossier until December. Bullshit. We know he passed it. It was in memo form at that time, not officially called the dossier, but he passed it officially in memo form to Harry Reid, and Harry Reid said that, the reason he gave it to me, because Harry Reid was asked about him leaking it to the media, and Harry Reid said, well, hell yeah, I leaked it to the media. And, do you think that was CIA Director Brennan's intentions? And hell yeah, it was his intentions. That's exactly what he wanted me to do. He gave it to me for that very reason, so that I could leak it to the media. He wanted me to spread it around. He also said that the dossier was not used. He said the dossier was not used as part of the IC. When we know it was. We know it was because James, his buddy James the unwitting idiot Clapper, has stated in at least 2 that I know of, probably more, TV appearances, has said that it was part of the overall IC, this intelligence document that they produced for the intel committees. And it appears, we haven't got the full evidence, but it appears from what Devin Nunes has said, is that John Brennan gave different briefings to him than he gave to other people in the Senate Intelligence Committee, including Mr. Warner. John Brennan was a member of the Communist Party. I do believe that when you're interviewing for a top secret clearance, you are asked about having any types of, I know I was asked about various political leanings, and if you say, yes, I was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party and voted for the communist candidate, I believe that bars you from getting a top secret clearance. John Brennan was also one of the key figures, one of the top 3 figureheads in a coup against a sitting president. Sedition. Arbitrarily? Are you kidding me, Mark? I don't think that that's arbitrary. And he continues to lie and cover up the crime that he was involved in. Go ahead and bring that bill up on the floor, Mark. And let's have that open debate. And let's put it on C-SPAN so we can all watch as you and Mr. Potato Head are shredded. Shredded. Papadopoulos, the wife of George Papadopoulos, was on Tucker Carlson. She says that her husband was set up. And he is filed for discovery. Mifsud also claims that he was set up or used. Here's what I think that they should do. They should have an open hearing for the public in front of House Intel. I don't care what damn committee it is. Senate Judiciary, House Intel, House Joint Committee, whatever. They need to have every one of these guys that were contacted by agent provocateurs put into play by Mr. Potato Head and the Rotten Reverend Clinton. They need to bring every one of these guys together in one hearing and go right down the line and get their thoughts. And don't sit there and just grill them or beat them to death, try to embarrass them or try to make it political. Just get every one of them to sit down and say, what do you think happened to you? Now that you can look back a year and a half and you can see things that have come out and things that you've learned, what is it that you think really happened? And just let them just say what's on their mind. And you have a lot of players there. Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Josh Miller, Roger Stone, Michael Caputo, Papadopoulos' boss. What's his name? Clovis. Mr. Clovis. Mr. Mifsud. Mr. Melion. Every one of these guys need to be seated in front of Congress in a hearing, and they all need to be asked, hey, what do you think happened? You seem to be saying that you thought you were set up or being used, or what exactly are you talking about? What really happened? And let them tell us what happened. That's what they should do. And so his wife is telling Tucker Carlson she thinks he should reverse his or withdraw his guilty plea. Of course he should. If he's innocent, I have my doubts. I'm not 100% sure Papadopoulos wasn't, if he's truly innocent and it was just 100% he was set up, he's awfully naive. For all these things to be happening and, this high-ranking ambassador, Downer, wants to sit down and have a conversation with you? Why? That's like the president of some gigantic corporation wanting to sit down and get my thoughts on something, or some financial expert, on Wall Street wants to sit down and have a talk with me, find out what I think about the markets. It's like these are the type of things that would run through your mind. It's like, why is the ambassador to the UK from Australia interested in my thoughts on energy or on Trump's politics? Who the hell am I? And how did I get put into this London International Law Center with all these think tankers who are connected to British intelligence and State Department of the United States and all this other stuff? How did I get in such rarefied air all of a sudden? What makes me so special? Papadopoulos had to be either so full of himself that he believed he was really on the track, or he was so caught up in the fact that his career was obviously, in his mind, really taking off, even though he was a very low-level, unpaid campaign volunteer. He certainly had to feel he was on the team, on a big club, he was on a major league club, the presidential candidate's team. So maybe he got so full of himself that he wasn't able to rationally understand what was going on around him. And that can be the only thing I can think of, or he's just extremely naive. Or something else. We just don't know the truth about Papadopoulos. There's a lot of mystery surrounding him. I have a lot of questions. And my questions have not been answered, so I can't make I can't come to any sort of conclusion. Judicial Watch has released 5 more classified emails that were on the Rotten Reverend Clinton's unsecure server. The evidence keeps on building against the rotten Reverend Clinton. Nancy Pelosi, Madam Botox, says that Mad Max, Maxine Waters, strikes fear in the heart of Trump. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a joke, obviously. Well, she also says that Mad Max is a friend and says Mad Max is a strong, courageous, and dedicated role model who knows how to get the job done. Yeah, she knows how to get the job done, all right. She's quite a job herself. I got to tell you, man. Pelosi and, if you took Pelosi and Mad Max, take Pelosi, Madam Botox, and Mad Maxine Waters, and you combine their EQs, you likely would still not reach double digits. Well, it looks like the dishonorable former director of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, J. Edgar Comey, is lashing out at Trump for revoking Brennan's security clearance. Now, what's this all about? Because Comey is not far behind. He's about to have his clearance revoked as well with a lot of other people. But they won't need it where they're going. Alcatraz. Here's the real deal, okay? All this stuff. What's the most valuable thing about a security clearance? Is it because these guys think they need a security clearance because, somebody in the Trump administration is going to call them to get their opinion that they highly value? No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to be calling Comey or Brennan or Clapper to ask them what they think about anything. Not in the Trump administration anyway. No, it's all about money, and it's a lot of money. Why? Because what do these people do when they leave these large bureaucracies where they're the head or top 1, 2, 3 heads of these large agencies, FBI, CIA, NSA, whatever? Well, they usually go into the private sector, and it's usually defense contractors, where they are paid 7-figure salaries, like James Comey. The dishonorable James Comey was in the Department of Justice, then he left the Department of Justice, went to the private sector, and I believe he went to work for Lockheed Martin, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of the top defense contractors, and his title was assistant vice president, and he was essentially the legal counsel. It was just a position to give him. Why? Because he has access. He has access. And he was paid, I understand it was like $6 million in the private sector. Now, here's why it's important. Because in order to get those jobs and those high-level positions in the Department of Defense-related contractors who get government contracts, they usually involve classified information. The things they work on are classified. Therefore, they have to have these security clearances, usually secret or top secret clearances. So when you lose your top secret clearance as a former high-level government employee like Comey or Brennan or one of these guys, you cannot take or be offered or accept any of these 7-figure salaried jobs working for the defense industry in the private sector. It's about the money. It's about the money. Those security clearances can make you one hell of a lot of money, especially if you're high level and you have all that access. It also, the news media doesn't like it. Like Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, is now a paid analyst for NBC. And they're able to bring him on, and because he's got these clearances and stuff, he can say things, and he can also be leaked classified information, and they can pass him off as a guy who's got this special information, which, makes you want to sit on the edge of your seat to listen to what he has to say. But once you realize that he has no secret clearance, and he's been basically kind of booted from the club, he's no longer a high-value source. So he doesn't get that 7-figure salary, or 6 or 7-figure salary from a major media outlet, because he's not really going to fit the part and be able to play the role. So the bottom line is, these security clearances, most importantly, what they really mean for these people who leave the government is money. Big, big money. That's the real truth. Now you know. Robbie Mook, who was the campaign chairman or campaign manager for the rotten Reverend Clinton in 2016, who ran the worst political campaign in the history of American politics, in my opinion, a real loser. Robbie Mook is now telling the Democratic communists not to campaign with Keith Ellison. That's pretty sound advice from Robbie Mook. I would agree. He's actually, proving that even a broken clock is correct once a day. That may be the only time that Robbie Mook has ever said anything in his life that makes any sense. He's a dingbat. But this is a very good piece of analysis. Yes, I would stay as far away as I can from Keith Ellison because this woman, apparently her boys, have got this video that she shot of him dragging her off the bed, calling her all kinds of horrible names, throwing her out of his house because she wouldn't take out the trash. And now she's even going on media appearances. He's denying it. But her boys claim to have seen the video and maybe have access to the video. We'll see if it shows up and what kind of dollar figure that will bring. I'm thinking at least 6 figures. Keith Ellison's about to have a career change. Will Silly Sally Yates. Let me start over. Let's try that again, can we? Will Silly Sally Yates admit that she knew about Bruce Orr's and Chrissy Steele's relationship? They had over 80 communications together. Chrissy and Bruce communicated over 80 times that we know of. Silly Sally was Bruce Orr's boss. This is what you call a conundrum and a legal problem for Silly Sally. If she admits that she knew it, she's criminally liable because that means she would know that Bruce was getting information from an FBI informant who had been fired and relieved of his duties as an FBI informant because he violated the rules. Then Bruce Orr went around a back channel to bring him in anyway. If Silly Sally knew that Bruce was doing this with Chrissy, then she is also guilty of the crime. If she claims she did not know, then it proves that she was an imbecile and probably lying, which is another crime on top of the original crime. Silly Sally, as I've said before, better lawyer up. Here's another good question for you. Was Uncle Bob the Executioner working with Christopher Steele or anyone else in the Hillary donor posse, knowing that Steele was dropped as a confidential informant by the FBI? Chrissy Steele's text to Bruce sure suggests that. It's time for Uncle Bob, the Executioner, and his Hillary donor posse to answer some questions. Because if Uncle Bob, the Executioner, and the Hillary donor posse have been using information from Chrissy Steele in the investigation, like Sally Yates, knowing he had been fired as an FBI informant, that would be a violation as well. And he would be participating in the cover-up in the very crime that he's supposed to be investigating. He would be an accessory. Sleep on that one. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. Bye.